Talking with Tasha, talking with Tasha. It's episode 78 of Talking with Tasha. Hello, welcome back to Talking with Tasha. It is March, which means it is Endometriosis Awareness Month, and it is Women's History Month. And you know what's better than one female podcaster? Two of them. So on this episode, Local Lou and I team up again. She's going to learn us some stuff about some influential kick-ass women in Sioux Falls history. And then, of course, we're going to talk about some other things like dating and movies and TV, like ER. Because why wouldn't we talk about a show from the 90s? But we also talk about heated rivalry, of course, because it will never end. I will never stop talking about heated rivalry. Any hoodly-doo. If you enjoy learning things about women, and if you enjoy listening to two women talk about things and sometimes go off on tangents, then you're really going to like this episode. So I hope you enjoy episode 78 of Talking with Tasha, featuring Local Lou.
Awesome. Hey, I'm glad that we're able to do this today. I'm glad that
finally.
we're both well. I'm glad that
Exactly.
we're both women that like history, united on a Sunday morning. I love that for us. Honestly, like the world is absolute chaos. So I think that's probably one of the reasons that I like history so much is it's already done. I don't know. It's so much less anxiety producing to just talk about things that have already occurred, even if they're bad.
But then isn't it also infuriating that like we have this history to learn from, but people just aren't learning from it? That's the part that with history.
Yeah, well,
like, you guys.
No, it is so it's so interesting because history and just like everything going on in the world is so cyclical. Like it just keeps happening. And that's why it's so fascinating that people are so reactionary to things that have happened 1,000 times. It's fascinating. All of it's fascinating.
Okay, but yeah, let's jump into it because March is Women's History Month. So that's like last March we did kind of this vibe too where you told me about the Women's Alliance and stuff. So we're doing it again with other things.
I love that. Yeah. No, I'm excited too because I'm going to talk about, I want to talk about a couple different women, and really it's about like the birth of our library system in Sioux Falls, which I think is really cool that it's basically built by women. And then I have like a tiny little, I don't know, like maybe appetizer of history with another woman that I just absolutely love, and I don't think anybody really talks about her, so I always like to squeeze her in when I can.
Yeah.
But like starting off, I wanted to talk about there's a book, The History of Minnehaha County, and it's Dana Reed Bailey. And in this we find in 1875 Mrs. Louisa Gale starts a reading room. And before I kind of do that, I want to explain a little bit about Louisa. So her name is it Louisa or is it Louise because her headstone says Louise? I don't know. But she was married to Artemus Gale. And he was like this really important guy in Sioux Falls history, but I feel like he's a really important guy in Sioux Falls history that nobody really knows about, but you do. So he was one of those ones that was like one of the first people here. And so he owns a ton of land, including a bunch just in the heart of the city, which is now like the All Saints neighborhood and McKinnon Park. And that area was actually called Galesburg for him and his wife's last name, Gale. Speaking of McKinnon Park, so Helen McKinnon is actually Artemis's sister. So again, without Artemis coming here first and kind of getting set up, he wouldn't have asked his sister to come out. And his sister ends up doing like all of this really cool stuff for Sioux Falls. But long story short with Artemis Gale is like he knows like a bunch of kick-ass women. And so I think that says a lot about like him. It says a lot that he surrounds himself with these really strong women and encourages them in their lives. And his best friend is W.H. Lyon, whose wife is Winona Axtell Lyon, which is another really awesome lady in Sioux Falls history. So again, like Artemis is kind of an important puzzle piece in Sioux Falls, but the women in his life, they're the real story. It shouldn't surprise us that,
as I feel
Louise does.
No, I was just going to say, I feel like that happens with a lot of powerful, quote unquote, men. It's like, but who's around them? Because somebody's, taking care of other things for him. Usually,
did you ever hear,
you know what I mean? Yeah.
Yeah. Did you ever hear that story that Michelle Obama at a restaurant in Chicago having a fancy dinner, and she's just like, oh my gosh, the chef, I used to date that guy. And he goes, don't you think it's funny? Like, what if you had married him instead of me? You would own this restaurant. And she's like, if I married him instead of you, he'd be the president of the United States.
I believe it.
Girl. Love that for her. I thought that was such a great way to say it. Yeah. It was such a great way to recognize her power in that, So.
Right. Exactly.
Okay. So pages 402 and 403 of this history of Minnehaha County, it talks about the library, and then it also goes into other benevolent organizations that we're not going to talk about. But so it says the first public reading room, one of the residents of Sioux Falls in 1875, Mrs. Louisa Churchill Gale, wife of Artemis Gale. During the summer of that year, she was in the habit of taking daily walks about the little village and had noticed that the youth and the homeless men were, let's see, they always use such such weird language. I've never heard of the word allurements. What does that even mean? Okay, I'm just going to say it, and then we can make fun of it later. So daily walks in Little Village, she had noticed that the hospitable-looking wide-open doors of the saloons inviting in the youth and the homeless men with their bright allurements and apparent good cheer. So basically, she's saying that the saloons were enticing people to come in. Okay, yeah, that makes sense. So Mrs. Gale, she wanted to act on this, at once enlisted the sympathy and aid of several public-spirited citizens and secured a room over Williams Brothers store on the site of the present Edmondson Jameson building for a public reading room, and at once commenced fitting it up with chairs, tables, lights, and draperies. Pictures, magazines, newspapers, and periodicals were subscribed for, and books were purchased for the first reading room in our county, and it was open to the public. For more than a year, Mrs. Gale was in attendance, and the rooms were kept open from 9 o'clock in the morning until 10 o'clock in the evening, which I thought was kind of wild. That is late. But
yeah,
she was not permitted to prosecute her good work without obstacles being thrown her way. What pretty persecution could not accomplish, the grasshoppers did. The closing of the reading room. A few years later, Mrs. Gale erected a small frame house on First Avenue and again established a reading room. But owing to its location, she was compelled to abandon the project that was so dear to her heart. This building was afterwards remodeled and is now a home. So, okay, there's a lot of bummers in this. She had such a vision, but the timing, no good. And also I love how they just toss in the grasshoppers. It's totally, normal that grasshoppers could ruin your business.
I believe it though, because I grew up out in the boonies. Yes, and I grew up out in the boonies, and 10 miles out of town. We didn't live on a farm, but we just lived in the boonies. And we had an old house. And one summer, and again lived out in the boonies, so they didn't spray for bugs like they do in town. And it wasn't grasshoppers, but crickets one summer were just everywhere. We were vacuuming them up because they were just everywhere. It was. So I believe it, because even now I remember there was one summer too, even speaking of grasshoppers, and in the summer, driving, you get way more bugs on your on your windshield and stuff. But I
Yeah.
remember one time I was like, is it raining? Because I was hitting just so many bugs on the highway or like the interstate one time. So I believe it, especially back then when they didn't have, I mean, even now it happens and we have better ways to sort of take care of things like that. But I believe it. Like, no one wants to deal with
Yeah.
grasshoppers all up in your business.
Literally. That's funny. Yeah, and we had a couple grasshopper plagues where like they descended upon the town like in almost kind of like a dust storm, except for their grasshoppers, and they ruined crops and people's lives. Like it was a hot mess. And what's really interesting about that is like if that were to happen again, there really isn't a solution for it. Like it happened in Vegas, I think like 10 years ago, where they had a big cloud of grasshoppers invade. And it's like, what are you going to do? Like nothing.
Yeah, I mean, we do have bug sprays and stuff now, but when there's that many,
Yeah.
it's kind of like, yeah, I don't know. And I'm sure we've all had like a grasshopper jump on us. They sometimes are
Yeah.
very hard to get off. They
Yeah.
suction cup to you.
Yeah.
And I
And they're
can't imagine
big.
like more than one. Yeah, yeah. Ugh, gross.
Yeah. I don't like it. And I definitely don't want that to happen when I'm in the library, to just be covered with grasshoppers.
True. But I do love her tenacity of like trying multiple times. You know, she was like, nope, we're going to try it again. And it was okay. So is she mainly making these reading rooms because she wanted a place to hang out that wasn't like a pub? Like it was an alternative to just like getting drunk, basically, was to like read and hang out.
Yeah.
Okay. That's okay. Just making sure I was following along. Although I do like going to the pub and drinking,
which,
but I do enjoy
I mean, it's a good idea
as well.
Yeah, no, I like reading and I like drinking. So I don't know. I mean, I think there's room for both, but I can understand. This is also like a time where like the temperance movement was like such a thing. And even a lot of the company that they kept, like their peers, their friends and stuff were like a really big part of the temperance movement in Sioux Falls. So I think that's probably another piece of why the saloon stuff is even a part of it, where they're just kind of looking down on it like, you know, if these people could not go to the saloon and instead enrich their lives, like it would make for a better Sioux Falls, which, I mean, that's not wrong. So like,
Right,
I get
totally.
I get the concept, you know? So I have another article here from Eric Renshaw. He does a ton of, he's like the guy that does that Forgotten Sioux Falls. And he like has these really great, like just decades of really cool Argus Leader articles that go like really into our history. And so this one's an Argus Leader one from January 11th of 2015. And it explains in way more like detail about kind of how we get from a reading room to like the library, you know, because it's definitely like a step-by-step, piece-by-piece thing. It doesn't just happen overnight. And it's, I don't know, it just surprises me how, like, don't they have like small town starter packs where it's like, I don't know, like, okay, you finally reached it. This many people, you now get a library and a school. And I guess they don't have that. So we had to like do it ourselves.
Right. I wonder, I guess maybe you know this, where was the first library, or like where, like when did that?
This is a perfect question to ask Natasha. Okay, so he starts with talking about Mrs. Gale, except for he calls her Mrs. Artemis Gale, which I find annoying because she has a first name and it's not her husband's. I know, it's such a bummer. Like, and it's another thing that makes like looking up history stuff so hard when you're looking for women, because they can be called a lot of things that aren't their name. So in 1875, Mrs. Artemis Gale opens a reading room at 9th and Phillips and would become the first library of any kind in Sioux Falls. So we already know that. And it's going to skip to in 1886, a literary society known as the Humboldt Club and the Sioux Falls Ladies History Club put together the Sioux Falls Library Association. And this charter, it's recognized by Dakota Territory because we weren't the state of South Dakota yet. And the association had 278 books. Isn't that adorable? I have at least 278 books. And by in 1887, but they added 500 more in 1892. So they have tripled
Dang.
their collection in just like 5 years. And these books, they kind of, I know, right? And also, like, this is a time where, like, there's no Amazon. You can't just go out and buy a bunch of books. Like, you have to kind of, like, source these, like, individually. You have to be given them. You have to seek them out. Like, I don't know. So you can understand how it was, like, hard for them to get that many books.
And when was, I
So
guess
they
I'm
open
bad
up.
with dates. When was the printing press invented? Because that made it a little easier to get books. But
That's right. Good question.
what's his
Let's
name?
look that up.
Is it Gutenberg or
Well,
the
he's got a
printing
good
press guy?
Bible. Yeah. Yeah.
But I think that's why it's called that, because they were able to like make it on the press faster and better or whatever. Anyway, I do know
Okay.
from various histories that books were not always easy to get because they were hard to make and expensive and blah, blah, blah.
Okay, so funny story is I put into Google printing press guy and it came up with Johannes Gutenberg. And so you're totes right. In Europe around 1440 is when the first movable type printing press occurs. So yeah, definitely there was a printing press at this time. But yeah, the books are still at that time. Like I remember, is it like Abraham Lincoln that I learned about as a kid, where he would borrow books from people, and just how once he ruined somebody's book, like on accident, and he had to work for them for like weeks to pay it off. Like,
I
and it's
believe
just like,
it,
oh my
yeah.
gosh, like that sucks.
And this is also
But
just in a time and place where knowing how to read and write, not everybody learned that stuff.
yes,
So like books just weren't as, I don't know, they weren't seen as like everybody needed one because not everybody could even read. So it was just it was just a different time, you know?
absolutely. It was. And thank God Dolly Parton came along and started her imagination library, because like
Yes.
for real, like
But I
it's
think that's,
amazing that literacy is still a thing.
yeah. But I think that's also why it was great that even here in Sioux Falls, I'm assuming, wanted to start a reading room, a library to help people have access to read, you know, because it's free. I'm assuming it was still free, like a library is free now, but
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's just important too, because like they're building, these women definitely understood the assignment. Like they want Sioux Falls to be this thriving and interesting place. And so they want everybody, children, grown-ups, people with jobs, people without jobs, people, just all of our people to be well read. Like that is such a great, great cause. So Sioux
Mhm.
Falls' first library building, I'm going to end up being at the former All Souls Church on the corner of 12th Street and Dakota Avenue. This is donated by WH and Winona Lyon. The upper floor housed the library, and the main auditorium was used for lectures and more social aspects of the library. This is going to be used from 1899 to 1903. And that's because a new library was being prepared at 10th Street and Dakota Avenue. That is the site of the current city council chambers, but it was the Carnegie Library at that time.
And I've heard that
which
story
was
about
a really
how
big deal.
Carnegie, Carnegie would like donate money to cities to build libraries, right? It was like a thing, like a very exciting thing to be
Yes.
picked or something.
Yes. It was very exciting to be picked, and I mean, this library was super expensive, so that's really cool.
And it's
Like,
still a cool
in
building. I've
Carnegie,
never
I
been
think-
inside, but the outside still looks really cool.
Yeah, it does. Well, because it's made of quartzite, and I think Joseph Schwartz is the guy that designed it, and it just looks cool. So
It's a circle
So,
building.
let's
It's
see, with
kind
the
of
help of-
you don't see
it was
circles very
30
often.
yeah, and of stone too, which is cool. But
Yeah.
yeah. So Andrew Carnegie gives $30,000, which is a wild amount of money in the time that we're talking about. Another $6,000 is raised by the Library Association, and the land for the building. In early 90s, books were not as plentiful as they are now, and even less in the time of Carnegie's youth. And Carnegie was impressed by his employer, who would allow the boys who worked for him to access a private library on Saturdays. The Carnegie Free Public Library served the city for 70 years, but it just started as a reading room. The children's department was moved to a remodeled grocery store on Phillips Avenue in 1954. The city bought its first bookmobile in 1951, adding 2 more in 57 and 60. The city started putting aside money for a new library in 1865, and by December of 1972, the 46,600 square foot, $1.5 million downtown library was completed at 200 North Dakota Avenue. And in 2010, a remodeling project was completed to boost its size to 61,832 square feet. So that is kind of the story of how it goes from a reading room to like this huge library, which is just kind of cool, I think.
Yeah, and I think when you first pitched this idea of talking about like reading rooms and stuff, my first thought was how it's interesting women started it, because now there are so many, like I'm in 2 book clubs right now and it's predominantly women. And I think it's just it's the same vibe. Like we want a place to gather and talk, and I mean sometimes it turns into gossip and whatever, but you're also there to like support your friends, and we read different, like I've read books in this book club that I never would have picked myself, but I still really liked them, and they're good conversations. And it's kind of like, The View, we want people with all different viewpoints, and it's still a safe space to, be like, I don't agree with that and blah, 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 so I think it's interesting that it kind of carried on in traditions of like book clubs and stuff. And I think it's interesting. She was trying to find a place where people wouldn't drink, but now like we drink at book club, like we have mimosas and stuff, but
yeah.
but we're still like learning things too,
Yeah, I think she would support that. I think she would support the community aspect of it, Yeah. And she would come. She would just have orange juice though, because she definitely would be a women's temperance union kind of gal. And, honestly, I love all branches of the Siouxland Library, but I specifically have extra love for the downtown one. I don't know if you go there a lot, but that building, it's so cool. It is just, it's a whole vibe. It's just really cool looking still. It has that, I don't know, I'm not good at architecture, but it has that whole, mid-century look, I think. I don't know. I'm so hesitant.
I've only been in there once or twice because you live downtown, so I could see why you frequent it a little bit more. But I've only been in it a couple times, but it is really it is very nice. I mean, I don't know. And it's so funny. I remember being in Chicago one time, and I was with my friend Rebecca, and we walk out of our hotel and we're just kind of like, let's just wander and see what we find. And we come upon this really nice old building, and we go in, and it's pretty skylights, and it's like old. Again, I don't know what era or whatever, but it's just really cool. And then we're like, oh, it's an old library. And we were so excited to be in this old library. And I just don't know how many people would actually be like, ooh, an old library. We got really excited, but it was really pretty in there. I do like some of those old buildings, and that they keep them, some of the stuff, from I'm assuming some of it was how it's always been, but it was cool.
Yeah. Oh, can you imagine going to the New York Public Library? That would be so cool. I think ever since I saw Ghostbusters as a kid, I've wanted to go there.
And I've been to New York a couple times, and there's just so much to see in New York. It's hard to do it all. But if I went back now, I'd be like, okay, I want to just we didn't hit up as many museums because there was just, there's so much stuff to see other than that. Now I'd want to do more of you can do the free stuff. Why didn't I just go to the library and wander? Or why didn't I? But, we're trying to see Times Square and the Statue of Liberty and blah, blah, blah. There's just so much stuff to see. But if I went back now, it'd be more of that stuff.
I think those are probably, but I think those are probably good stuff. So, I think, you got to get those ones out of the way.
Yeah. And that's why New York, it's one of those places. Both times that I went, I ended up with blisters and stuff because there's just so much walking, and there's just not a good, every time I went, we weren't totally good at making a good efficient route of things to see, because we'd be in one part of the city and then just be like, oh, let's go do that, and it was up here, and then we'd be like, oh, let's go do that, and it's like where we were before, and so we weren't efficient with our time, but it was fun both times. But yeah, it's a big place to figure out.
Did you take like the subway, or were you guys just walking everywhere?
The first time I went was with my family, and this was before smartphones, so we did more cabs and stuff. My dad said we were going to do the subways to save money, but before having apps and stuff to help you, it was a little confusing for some Midwesterners to figure out. So we did more cabs and things. But then the second time I went, it was right after I graduated college. So we did have smartphones by then. And then there were apps that like kind of just like Apple Maps or whatever. It would tell you which stops to take and whatever. So that time we did way more subways and stuff. And then that really did prepare me for when I went to Europe, because when we were in London, we had the most days in London. And I was able to use the underground so more efficiently because I had kind of had a test run in New York or whatever. And theirs was way cleaner. London is a way cleaner city.
Like, that's so cool.
Good job, London. Those English know what they're doing sometimes.
When I was in DC, I was actually surprised. Yeah, well, and I think probably like the amount of people makes a big difference too. But when I was in DC, like I was surprised. Like I thought everything was like really clean. And again, like just using your phone, it tells you what bus stop, what time, where it's going. Like I can't imagine doing it before then. I would not have made it anywhere in that city. I don't know. I mean, I get how maps work, but like calm down. Like, no, it's just complicated because it's like this bus is going this place, but only at this time. And it's like, okay, well, I'm not from here. Calm down.
Well, and then too with the smartphones in the subway, sometimes you'd lose service because you're underground. And then you could tell who like wasn't from, I mean, they could tell a tourist a mile away anyway, but you could tell who some of us were like, I forget what our next thing was. Or like we'd always screenshot what our steps were before we'd get totally underground, so we'd still have the next we need the red line or whatever, you know. But you learn the the tricks.
That's smart. Yeah, that's just really smart. Like when I go on a trail that I've never been on, like if I'm at a park and I'm walking a trail I've never been on, the first thing I do is take a picture of the map before I start the trail, because it's like, let's not. I don't need to get lost here today.
We don't need you on the news, like, local podcaster lost in a park.
Yeah, lost at Good Earth State Park. That'd be about right. I did go off the trail there before, which you're not supposed to do, and I found out why. So, like, I was covered in these little sticky thistle things, like, from head to toe, and I'm just like, yep, that's why they don't want you going off that trail. Got that figured out. Rebel. Thanks. Yeah, right. Oh gosh. Yeah, I don't know. I thought it was really neat to kind of celebrate some of these women in Sioux Falls history for Women's History Month. And honestly, it just makes me want to know more about Winona Lyon, because she's just such a powerhouse. And honestly, I think Louise Gale, she just died too soon. So they're talking about her doing this reading room in 1875. She dies in 1880. So she never really had a chance to be a part of what ends up being the library. And she definitely would have. She was so up her alley. And also another thing that I think about is if she would have been able to live to old age, I think we would know who Artemis Gale is. And the reason I say that is because their best friends are the Lyon family, and almost everybody in Sioux Falls knows the W.H. Lyon Fairgrounds. And that's because Winona. So Winona wanted to do something to keep her husband's memory alive, and she donated a bunch of land to be used for a fairground. But there were stipulations. And one of them is that it must be called the W.H. Lyon Fairground, which it is still called to this day. And so it's one of those where, it's kind of fascinating to me, because shouldn't she be the one that's being celebrated? But because she donated the land, she did this, she did that. But at the same time, since, I have experience with my significant other dying, there is this really weird thing that you get where all of a sudden you want to make sure that they're remembered even after you're gone. So I get it, but I still think like we know W.H. Lyon because of Winona. And so I think if Louisa had lived longer, we would know Artemis Gale. But instead, we remember his sister because she ends up starting our hospital system. She ends up donating the land for McKinnon Park, which is still like just a really cool, really, really cool park in the middle of downtown Sioux Falls, essentially.
And that
And
neighborhood
so,
in general is really pretty. Like a lot of the houses and stuff are really cool.
no, they are. They're super cool. And it was the first boulevard in Sioux Falls. And it was definitely, it was meant to be a showstopper neighborhood. And it still is. I could
Mhm.
never afford to live in that neighborhood. Like, those
No.
houses
I mean,
are splendid.
I'll drive through it during like Halloween and Christmas because a lot of those people
Mhm.
go all out on stuff, but like it's
They
pretty
do.
when they decorate and stuff. Or even I remember one St. Patrick's Day,
Oh,
the families that live on McKenna, that boulevard, they blocked it off and they had like a block party for St. Patrick's Day and they had like Irish step dancers and
so
they had like
cute.
free drinks out on the yards and stuff, but it was like, you know, all rich people. So I was like, yes, I will take your free booze. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
It was fun. Yeah.
Hey,
it
I'm
is a
always
cool neighborhood.
available to be invited to your parties. Yeah.
Yes. I will
I
come
mean,
be like your charity case. I'll do it.
Yeah.
I'm not too proud to drink your free things.
well, you're a celebrity. SIOUNO.
It's so funny though. I still think it's funny how many people assume that in this market, if you're on the radio or TV, you're like rich or something. I'm like, no,
They do.
I got like no monies. Like I might go to some of these fundraising events, but I got free tickets and I'm just
Yeah.
buying like one drink as a donation. Like that's all I got to
Yeah.
give.
Yeah, I do like going to charity events and stuff, but I do get free tickets a lot, which
Yeah,
is nice. And I'm a very good attendee. So
Yes.
please do invite Natasha and I to your event.
And I spread awareness. I'll post
Yes.
about it.
Yep, we'll post about it.
And like even on my wall, when I went to one of the furniture mission auctions, they were auctioning off different furniture things. It's an art piece
Oh, yeah.
for the wall. It was like the only thing I could afford. I did like this other lamp thing and I tried to buy it off the person that did win it in the auction. Towards the end of the online auction, when things weren't really selling, they started lowering the price. And then it became like a weird game where I had to win something, you know?
That sounds
But
fun,
it is-
actually. Yeah.
Yeah. And so, but it's like a purpley flowery thing. And I was like,
Aw.
okay, I'll find a spot for it. And then once I got it though, I was like, oh, this is bigger than I realized. Like once I held it up, I was like, oh crap. But
Dun,
I
dun,
mean, I
dun.
donated. It was fine.
Well, that's a really
But
good
those events
cause,
usually-
too. The furniture mission is
Yeah. But those events usually always have at least a signature drink where like that, if you buy that drink, so much goes to it. And I will always buy that. So there you go.
I'm
I'm a sucker for a signature drink.
It's true. Yeah, I am too, especially like a theme. I'm a sucker for a
Mhm.
theme. I love going to a theme party. I love being a part of the theme. I like going through my closet to see if I have anything that matches your theme. Like, I get very excited
Even
about.
last night I went to Ladies of the 80s for the Premier Playhouse, which is our local community theater. And my friend Summer, she won their karaoke showdown, so it was kind of her show, but there were like
That's
guest
so cool.
singers and stuff too. So it was more like a cabaret. It wasn't all just her, but it was like mostly her. And it was like kind of all songs from the 80s. And then they had two signature drinks. One was called the Purple Rain, but it was just blue and red, like Maui mixed together. So then it was purple. And then it was, the other drink was a Cyndi Lauper, but it was basically a fuzzy navel, but like they tweaked it a
That's
little bit.
adorable.
And yeah, and so I got one of each because, you know, I'm supportive. But would I have gotten a fuzzy navel normally? No. And I am a sucker for like, even at the Washington Pavilion, God bless them, they always do
Yes.
like themed drinks for the shows.
Yes.
And they're a little pricey, but
They are.
I'm a sucker. You could make that $30.
Mhm.
I will pay for it if you give it a fun name.
Yeah.
Like, I know this about myself and I will do it.
Well, I just came back from a vacation. I came back with 3 different souvenir glasses because I had to buy the beverage that was contained in them. So,
Exactly. I have a couple of those too, like
Yep.
from New Orleans.
mhm.
The things you walk around in the street with. Why do I still have it?
Yes.
I don't know.
Might need it. I don't know. Like,
I have a beer
Oh my
bat
gosh.
from Wrigley Field that I just keep for some reason.
that's funny. You should almost throw a party with all of your glasses.
True. A girl I work with, we were comparing, she's in her 20s, so we were comparing like college experiences, but she's also like a cute little blonde thing, and I was a nerd and not that in college, so her experiences were a little different. But she was telling me about, they had parties where it was like everything but a cup, like you could drink, like
That's
you had
cute.
to bring, you know, like you could,
Yes.
so she was drinking out of a Halloween jack-o'-lantern candy thing. Like that was
Love
her
that.
cup, essentially. But it could be like, because I feel like most everybody has some sort of promotional cup or, you know,
Yes.
weird glass, like you're saying, like
Yes.
that could be a theme for a party. Like bring
That
whatever
would be
weird
cute.
cup you have.
Yeah. And make a
Next book
signature
club.
drink for it. Yeah. Next book club. We're doing it. What are you guys reading for book club right now?
Ooh, it actually kind of fits this women's vibe.
Sure.
It's called The Frozen River, and it's by Ariel Lahan, and it's based on a real life. I didn't realize this till I listened to it. I listened to the author's notes at the end. I mean, she took some liberties with it, but it's based on a real life midwife who kept like a journal of her life.
Yeah.
And her name is Martha Ballard. So some people might be familiar because I guess she's kind of been famous.
That
like
name
her diary's
sounds
been
familiar. Yeah.
But for this, it's still fictionalized a little bit. But in the author's notes, she does talk about how like she took things that were all in the journal. She just changed the time span or whatever to make it like make sense. But it's basically about, she's a midwife, and it starts with this guy ends up getting murdered, and they have her come like examine the body because
he was pregnant.
No, I mean, but she was still also just like a medical person in town. Like, you know what I mean?
I get it.
So
Sorry.
like, no. But it's partially because in any small town, there was maybe some corrupt higher ups and stuff. So they were like, we want you to see it to have like another set of eyes. But then it also goes into her birthing babies, obviously women in the town. And there's a lot of talk of like illegitimate children and how the women would get fined, but the men wouldn't. There were so many things in it. And then even though her profession made it so that she had to like testify in court for various things, her husband like had to be present. And I'm like, why? Like he was not the one that examined the body, or you know what I mean? It was just wild things in there like that. And it was just a really interesting read. I mean, women have been having babies for forever. But part of the reason Martha Ballard was famous was because she never lost a mother in childbirth.
Ooh.
I mean, there were some stillborn babies, but she never lost a mom, which for the time period is amazing. And she kind of was forced into being a midwife because she had had a few kids, and the midwife in her town previous was starting to go blind. And so this kid was like, Martha, come to this house, because that's how they got messages across town. They just sent a kid or whatever. And then
makes sense.
And she shows up, and the midwife that is getting older and couldn't see was like, I need you to help me. You're basically my apprentice now. And she was like, what? Why? And she was like, well, I helped birth your babies, and you were the calmest person. You don't freak out in an emergency. And I think you have the right temperament to do this. And so that's why she kind of like voluntold her to like be a midwife. And so she did.
That's really cool. And also she was right.
Yeah.
Because she was kick ass at it. Like, so that's really cool.
But then it, it goes into like there was this, and then part of this guy being murdered, he was accused of a rape, but there was like, there's just a lot in it that is also women's rights kind of things and a different time period and and it deals with loss too, because she had 9 kids, but like 3 of them died and from diphtheria. And I didn't really know what diphtheria was, but I Googled it, and like you just swell up, your throat swells up and you die and you're just like mucus. Terrible. But anyway. Happy times. It was a great book.
Well, it sounds really interesting, though.
It was. And I felt like a dummy reading it or listening to it the whole time, and then not realizing till the author's notes that it was a real person. But that's why reading is good. I learned about a new person.
Yeah. Also, like, I almost kind of like that you found out afterwards, because I feel like it reframed the book for you. Like, you sat in one seat while reading it, and then you find this out, you're sitting in a completely different seat when you're looking back on it. Yeah.
And I figured it was based on
something
real things that had obviously there's been midwives, and it kind of is taking place shortly after the revolution and stuff. So like obviously there's stories, and there were midwives at the time, and women were treated different. Like I understood it was based in some fact, but I didn't realize this person was actually real.
Yeah.
But it was cool.
That's wild. That sounds really interesting.
Yeah. It's called The Frozen River. Check it out.
Yeah. Yeah, I will. That sounds good. I might listen to it because I do a mix. Like I do like reading a book. I'm reading a good one right now. It's called The Book Club for Troublesome Women. It's cute. And of course, spoiler alert, they're not troublesome. They're just women.
I feel like if they're in a book club, they're not too troublesome. But
Right, right. I guess.
I
But
might
it's
have
all
to
about,
bring that up to my book club because that sounds
yeah.
right up our alley. But yeah.
Yeah, well, it's all about like, the time frame and all that kind of stuff because it's like these women are just normal women, but it's the fact that they're gathering and talking and all those things. Yeah.
They must be
Um
witches. They're in a coven. Why do they all need to be together? And the other thing about the frozen river, real quick, because I don't know why the end, I guess I'll have to double check. I don't know if how it ends is factual, but I love that she does what she does at the end. I'm like, get it, girl. It's a little, this would spoil it a little too much, but it's a little Lorena Bobbitt action.
which honestly, like when that happened when I was a kid, it was like, oh, she crazy. But
No,
then,
she had
like,
condoning it,
No.
but there were
oh,
other things going on that I
yes.
understand. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
And
And
she was like, I watched a Lifetime thing about her.
yeah.
And she was like really young. She was an immigrant, like hadn't been here super long. I feel like this guy just really, he didn't treat her super well. Like there were a lot
Correct.
of other things happening for sure.
And it's always hard because you never know what's going on behind closed doors. You never know what you think you know about other people's relationships. Like the only people that actually know are the two people that are in it.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's hard when he's saying that he never abused her and then she's saying he did. But for me, like, what made me step over to her side is the fact that after Lorena Bobbitt did what she did, he called her and tried to get back together with her. Like,
I think he still wanted control. Like it's still
yes,
about control to them, What the hell?
wild. So, I mean, that to me sold it that I feel like I believe her story because why I cannot imagine why
Mm-hmm.
a man would ever get back together with somebody that did that to them.
Yeah,
So,
and I think it's interesting a lot of these stories about women in the 90s that now that I'm a little older and have a
yeah.
different perspective and even just seeing it through a 2026 lens, like even Monica Lewinsky, like they kind of made her out to be this bad person and a joke, but I'm like, no, but she wasn't the president and she wasn't the one that was married and like
she was a kid. She was
and like
so
I'm
young.
not condoning it, but there's just extenuating circumstances and
Right.
still abuse of power and that kind of
Yes.
thing. And or what's the other one? Like Amy Fisher shot the girl in the face. Like
Yep.
that was
Yep.
also like if it wasn't for this man, none of this
Yes.
would have happened.
Yes, that was Joey Buttafuoco's problem.
Yes,
and
yes.
he made that happen. Like
Yeah.
Amy was a kid and
Again, much younger. Yes.
yeah,
yes.
she was like 16, 17.
Gross.
His wife was absolutely just an innocent in the whole thing.
Mhm.
Just bopping around living her life, like, and her husband was just causing chaos. So
Yeah.
but
And
he
especially
gets
like
off.
remember I also I don't know if you've ever watched Bailey Sarian on YouTube, but she does
Yeah.
murder.
Yeah.
Okay, so I was rewatching an old one of hers about, an older guy dating a girl in high school, and she was talking about, when I was in high school, there were a couple girls that had boyfriends that were like maybe 22, 23, and at the time, when you're also 15, 16, you're like, "Oh, that's so cool. They're so mature."
Cool.
And then you get older and you're like, "Gross, ew."
Gross. Yeah.
When I was 23, did I want to hang out with a 14, 15, 16-year-old? Not
No.
even a little bit. Not even my brother.
No.
My brother was annoying. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
I can't imagine. Why did we think? And it's usually men. I'm not saying older women don't date younger men, but it's usually a man.
Mhm.
And I'm just like, oh, it's so gross. Why are men so gross?
Yeah.
Perspective.
I know. Yeah. It hurts sometimes.
Oh, but anyway, okay. Women do
Yeah.
better. Or like, not men need to do better so that women don't end up in these precarious predicaments because of the men.
Right. And that's where like women's rights are so important to make sure that the law can assist when things get bad. And it's interesting because living in Sioux Falls, like we actually have such a history of being kind of a safe haven for some things. We were known as like the divorce capital for a while. And that was really interesting. It was because of our residency laws, and they were really lax. And the reason for that, like at the time, it was really hard to get a divorce. And you had to prove like that somebody was cheating or horribly mistreating you in order to like qualify for a divorce in a lot of states, which, just isn't how it should be. I mean, you should be able to leave your marriage if you want to leave your marriage. Sioux Falls specifically had really lax residency laws because it was Dakota Territory, and they wanted to make sure that women had some control over their lives out here. That's awesome.
Mm-hmm.
And that ends up being something that kind of builds our city because people from all over end up coming here to get their divorce, which means we have a ton of lawyers. It means we have some really nice hotels. We have all these things built on these divorces and kind of built on giving people the rights that they deserve. Then ultimately it goes away because like the rest of America kind of starts to catch up that, yeah, this should be easier for people. Like,
And especially for women, like a lot of times, like if a woman said, I want to leave, they were, I don't know, like it wasn't good enough for her to want it. Like they, it's wild.
well, there was like the husband could take the kids. And again, it's just one of those where it's like, there should be a legal thing there, like where it's figured out by a third party. It shouldn't just be you automatically get to take something because you're a man.
Yeah.
Like that doesn't feel right.
Did you ever see the movie Suffragette with, what's her name? Carey Mulligan in it?
No.
Okay. And this is in England or whatever.
Yeah.
There's a part but it was very similar because women had the same level of rights for the most part in the Americas. She ends up separating from her husband because she wants to be part of the suffragette movement and he doesn't like it, blah, blah, blah. And then again, because he's the man, she has no rights to the kids anymore because they broke up. And then also because he's a man, he's like, oh, I can't take care of these two kids. He gives them up for adoption, even though their mom is willing to take them. But she has no rights once they get divorced. And I was freaking out. But that's exactly why she's fighting for rights, because like this should not happen when you have a parent that wants to like take care of you.
Right.
It was wild. I was like, holy cow. Again, that's a good movie. I love really depressing things. You should go watch it.
I do too when they're not my life.
Yeah. But that's one of those things too where, I mean, I knew about suffragettes, but not totally. And in that movie, again, it's a little dramatized, but a lot of things did happen where I'm going to blank on her name though. But I love that this woman did it to get the attention. They went to one of these big horse races to protest. And to get their attention, because nobody was paying attention to them, the one lady gets hit by a horse and dies. But it brought headlines. A woman literally had to jump in front of a horse for people to pay attention. Like it was. But if she hadn't done that, who knows where we'd be, So it's kind of wild.
It's super wild.
Yeah.
And you just wonder, like, what jumping in front of a horse is now, Yeah. Because there's still a lot of things that need attention, especially, especially in this day and age with everything's on fire all the time.
And something you said earlier about you never know someone's full story. It's so funny you say that because just this morning I was texting with my friend Sam because we both watched The Pit. And this might be this might be spoiler alerts, but in the latest episode, a really overweight man comes in and one of the student doctors is being kind of rude about his weight or like, asking like, well, do you work out or what, kind of judging him for his weight. And then we find out that he was in a car accident that then laid him up and then he had multiple surgeries. And then, like things just kind of like snowballed because he was immobile for a while and, those sort of things. And then there's another storyline with a guy who keeps coming into the ER because he's an alcoholic. And so they call him a frequent flyer, and everybody likes him. He's a nice guy, but he comes in because he has all these issues from his drinking. And then we find out his backstory. He never used to drink until his pregnant wife was in a car accident and died. And so you just never know a lot of people don't end up that way because they like had a great life. You know what I mean? Like there's
Right.
usually something that happened. And so we all just need to give people a break sometimes, you know? You never know what's going on.
Yeah, definitely. And just maybe be more open to understanding. Like, you don't have to accept everything, but being more open is nice, you know,
Yeah.
having conversations with people first. Like, have a conversation first and then, like, hate them later if you still do.
Right.
Like,
I mean, you still don't have to like be best friends.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Yeah.
No, it was just
I don't know.
interesting that you said that. And I literally had the same conversation this morning watching that
Funny.
show. But yeah.
Funny. Okay, so I want to kind of tease about this other woman in Sioux Falls history, and then I have a TV show to talk to you about. So,
Okay. Do it.
So
I will get off on a tangent all the time.
Yeah.
So rein me back in.
Just back to women's history for like a second. It's just a teaser, but Louisa Mitchell, she comes to Sioux Falls with her husband, Harvey, in 1906. When they arrived, Harvey, he takes a job at a barber shop, and Louisa sets up a beauty store in her living room, and she is immediately recognized as being super talented at what she does. And she didn't even have like the proper equipment. She's washing people's hair in a bowl. She's using a kerosene lamp and a fan as a hair dryer. She is using an actual iron to iron people's hair, which my mom did in the 70s too.
I was going to say, I've seen that before though. That's,
yeah.
You know.
And after her doing this for a really short period of time, somebody was so impressed with how their hair turned out. They went to Shriver Johnson, which was like this huge department store in downtown. And they went to the beauty department. They're like, hey, you need to hire her because she is working wonders with a kitchen bowl and a kerosene lamp. Like, you need to get her in here. And so they do. They hire her, and she opens up. She's like the manager of the beauty parlor at Shriver Johnson Department Store, which was the largest department store in South Dakota at the time. And a little while after that, Louisa and her husband, they open up the California School for Beauty Culture. So that's really cool. In this space, women can come and take classes and graduate with the knowledge that they need to create their own beauty parlors. And let's see, after that, Harvey ends up quitting his job to work for his wife.
Love a supportive husband.
I love it. And they also end up opening up a center in their home that is basically for people from out of town that are not white that can come and find places that will hire them. And it's a Booker T. Washington Center, and it's a place to stay while you're getting on your feet in a new city. As she ends up being a huge part of the YWCA, that she is very active in tons of organizations. She is a part of society. Her dinner parties make the newspaper. And what I think is so fascinating about all this, 1906, Louisa Mitchell gets here and just kind of makes this really cool life for herself. She's an African-American woman in Sioux Falls, South Dakota in 1906 that did all that. And I feel like it's so inspiring and so cool. And she must have been so fearless to take that train to get off at Sioux Falls, South Dakota, and stick out so much and accomplish everything that she accomplished. Like, it's inspiring, it's shocking, it's mind-blowing, and I think that everybody should know about her.
That story reminds me a little bit of like Madam C.J. Walker. Did you hear about her? I forget where she's from, but she started a beauty brand and was like one of the first Black millionaires or something. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, I think we talked about her
a little bit. Yeah, because both those stories they kind of remind me.
They
of
overlap.
Other,
yeah, and it's so
she was
impressive.
in Louisiana, I think. She was born there, but she died in New York.
Good for her. Yeah, it's so impressive, and it's so inspiring, and I believe that Louisa, I mean, she was part of the Sioux Falls NAACP, which like that chapter just started going again within the last couple of years, which is so cool. I don't know. It's just a really, really neat piece of our history. And I always like to fit her in when I can.
Yeah, no,
Because,
I love,
yeah,
even when you were telling that story, I'm like, I think she's told me this before, but I do
I
like this
have,
story.
but it's like, oh, maybe new people will hear it.
No, for sure. Tell it all the time.
Yeah, it's just like a little, like I said, like a little appetizer to history where it's like, I want you to want to know more about
Mm-hmm.
people like that in our history they're in the history book, but they're in these little footnotes, and I think they deserve like a page in the history book. So.
And I always think it's fun talking to you, like even you mentioning W.H. Lyon and McKinnon, and there are all these names that we hear all the time living in Sioux Falls, but I don't really know the backstory of most of them, so it's nice to. And then when you were talking about the Lyon family, though, I was like, I wonder how many times they turn over in their grave when people say W.H. Lyons, because a lot of people do say it wrong, but
they do. Yep. It's so true. And there's so many interesting things happening with that these days because that land is kind of like a point of contention. She was so specific. So W.H. Lyon was actually a lawyer. Winona, being married to a lawyer for so long, is no dummy when it comes to how to leave things to the city. And her contract about this land is pretty specific about what it can and can't be used for and what it needs to be called and all those things. So a lot of that has come into play in the last couple of years because the city wants to develop that land. Well, they kind of want to strip mine it because there's something valuable in the materials underneath it. But the city doesn't have the right to do that. But they are, of course, trying to find loopholes to give themselves the right to do that. And it's a complicated thing, and that is history that's still being written today.
Are there any descendants of that family still here in town?
Well, so they're not going to be direct, because I don't believe that. See, now I'm getting scared, but I feel, because I don't want to be wrong, but I feel like Winona and WH didn't have children.
Oh, okay.
But they would still be, family.
Right.
Just not direct. And so, yes, there are still people that would like to see the land either be reverted back to the family or the city to keep up their end of the bargain.
Yeah. Where would we have the fair?
Yeah. So they're talking about moving it, more out by like Wildwater West and stuff.
Oh, okay.
And, which does make sense. Sioux Falls is big and has grown in a lot of different ways. And so moving it that far out of town gives it probably another few more decades before they'll have to move it again.
Mm-hmm.
Because Sioux Falls will just grow right up into its doorstep.
Yeah.
So again, that's his history that's still being figured out like right now, and we'll see what ends up happening. But I obviously am siding with Winona on this one. So.
Yeah. And I just think we already have that big gaping hole of the digging that they do like right next to it along the interstate, which is kind of an eyesore. I know there's money to be made and blah, 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 but like, it's ugly.
And this will look just like it.
Exactly. So it's like, I don't know.
Okay, so I finished my second Diet Coke of the morning.
Yay!
Which, it's a sickness.
What do they call it? A fridge cig?
Yes, it totally is. There's something about it. Okay, so now that we kind of have the history out of the way, I have to give you a little bit of grief because you kind of like inspired me to watch Heated Rivalry. Yes.
And you didn't like it? You weren't immediately invested?
That show is so dirty.
It is. I mean, if you're not into like
pornography
spicy things, you probably, I get it. Cause I have a couple of friends that are like, it's not their vibe, but I think even on, and I know the show kind of, the first things I saw about the show were about the spicy scenes. And so I was like, ooh, what's this? But after watching it, and I've said this multiple times to people, I think even if they took the spicy scenes out, I would still love it. It's still a great story of it's almost like a Romeo and Juliet thing. Like they're not supposed to be together, but they are. And then there's another kind of side story where it's will they, I mean, well, both stories are kind of will they, won't they, but in a different way. And I've had I have a lot of gay friends, and they're like, as a straight woman, why do you think straight women like it so much, Bob? Well, first of all, it was written by a straight woman.
Yeah.
It is from the female gaze a little bit.
Yeah.
And then I've heard some people be upset about that. Like, why is this straight woman writing about gay people? And I'm like, I feel like I'm an honorary gay man. Maybe I shouldn't say that, but I have so many gay friends that I feel like.
Also, like, who better to write about relationships with men than a woman?
And I think she's, even if it was a gay couple, straight couple, whatever, she's writing it. I think part of what women are identifying in it is the men in the show eventually, because I think in any relationship, you know, it builds or whatever, but like they're willing to be vulnerable. They're talking, they're listening to each other. There is a bit of the foreplay of it, because there's a point in it where they're just like sending messages to each other like over years, but they're not together. You know what I mean? It's that like yearning kind of thing, or like a lot of people say foreplay, but it's still that I think everybody can identify with having a crush, that rush of adrenaline when you see like, oh, they're calling, or like, you know, that sort of thing. And like, the other side story where with Scott and Kip, because Kip's friends are like, dude, he's flirting with you. And he's like, no, I don't think so. Because we've all been there too, where it's like, are you just being nice? I don't know. He's just being nice. Like, does he like me? I don't know. And I just think,
gosh,
but then the gay aspect of it in a very hetero world of hockey does add another layer. But I think some of us have also been in a situation where you like somebody you know you shouldn't, or, you know, there are relatable things in it in a lot of ways. But I understand if the sexy time stuff, just like, I almost wish they would put out a version without some of that, so that so you still get the plot without that. Because some people, I do understand that's just not your cup of tea, like, you know, but
because it goes really far. That's the thing. Like, I want the version for the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. Like, I would like this to just, like, I don't know what they could do to improve this, but I just feel like I want a version where I don't know, that like SpongeBob thing where it's like a few minutes later. Like, I just
there are a few times when they quote unquote hook up that they do cut away. Like, it's not, they don't show like every scene. Because I also just finished Tell Me Lies, and I got to a point in that show, because it also shows a lot of sex, where I'm like, can we move on? Like, I am over these people. But that show, just for a whole other reason, it's all just people being terrible. Like, not a redeeming character. Yeah. Well, maybe one redeeming character, but it was, by the end of it, I was like, these people are toxic. They all need therapy. They need different friends. They, you know, but anyway, I understand it's a
like
show
reading
drama,
The Great
whatever.
Gatsby. Like, The Great Gatsby, everybody's garbage. Like, absolute garbage.
But back to Heated Rivalry.
Yeah.
I also like that a lot of the guys in the show do have female friends, or like females in their lives, and I like how even the females are represented in the show but I didn't read the books, but I'm assuming they have the same sort of characters in the books. I don't know. And back to the nudity part, there's a little part of me, yes, they go pretty far, but there are no penises. You never see a penis in the show, and part of me is like, let's go all the way or not. Like, what are we doing?
And I'm on the or not side. I'm like a Girl Scout. That's too much for me. I'm like,
and don't get me wrong, I wouldn't want to watch it with people. Like, I was blushing. I was like, but I think for me it was almost like more than that. But okay, and you probably saw in the first episode, I think it's the first episode, where the shower scene where Ilya like kind of turns to him and is sort of like, we don't see it, but we're assuming he's doing. I'm like, in another scenario, this is harassment.
Yep.
Like, if he wasn't into it, this is not okay, you know, but he was into it. So, I mean,
it's a pretty bold thing to do.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's very bold. You would definitely, you can't guess that. You have to know that.
Yeah. Their radar must be pretty good, but yeah. But I did and I've talked about this with another friend, and I don't know if you probably didn't get to, but the first time they like go all the way, Ilya, I liked this part of it because it showed a lot of consent and things. And I think this is in any relationship. Ilya was checking on Shane the whole time. Like, are you okay? Are you sure this is okay? Can I keep going? Men, check on your partners. Like, I'm just saying, there's consent, and like, I don't know. There's just a lot in it where I'm like, oh, this is beautiful. I don't know. Just give it a try and fast forward, I guess. I don't know.
I felt like I did give it a try, and I don't know. I feel like
you don't have to like
too much
it
for me.
Speaking of just other shows that I try to recommend to people. So at work, again, this 20-something that I was talking to, she said she liked The Pitt. And I said something about, I'd let Noah Wyle give me stitches because he's played a doctor for so long. And she goes, what? And I go, you don't know about ER? And so I was like, you need to watch ER. She did say she gave it a try. She watched like 2 or 3 episodes. And she's like, I don't know, I just couldn't get into it. And I was like, you need to just lie to me because that's one of my favorite shows ever. And but you know what the first thing she said to me the next day at work? She was like, there's just so much paper. And I was like, she's like never seen paper charts or like.
Yeah.
Isn't that wild?
That's actually a very good observation. I enjoy that. I think that
and I mean, that show ran for so long that eventually, you know, they don't have as much paper. But then it's interesting, on the most recent episode of The Pitt, they're under like a cyber attack, so they have to shut all their electronics down. And they brought out that marker board, and I was like, oh, Dr. Carter knows what to do with this board.
Yep. It's true.
It was giving me ER flashbacks, and I was loving it, but it was
it's like, and we're home again. Yes.
And then all the youths are like, what? What do I write? What do I do? But I also think the same conversation I was having with my friend this morning. How do you grow up wanting to be a doctor and you've like never seen ER or know that this was how it was done before? I don't know. ER honestly is one of my, love that show so much. It's like nostalgia. So it's home. I think it's part of the reason I'm anxious now because there were so many scenes that were so, like, you know, the back and forth of the trauma rooms and the swinging doors, and it's fast and like, I loved it, and I think it's part of the reason I'm also anxious. So
the helicopter, I still will never forget that.
Romano,
as I say, Eric LaSalle. Oh my gosh, like just his voice,
and even just the theme song like gets me hyped. It's like Dr. Kovac,
clock me in. Love it. I'm ready for my shift.
And I just think Dr. Green is one of the best TV characters of all time.
Yes.
And I follow David Krumholtz on Instagram, and, you know, he was like Bernard the Elf in the Santa Claus, but then he also was, I don't know if people remember this, but he was also the guy with bipolar disorder that stabbed Carter and Lucy, killing Lucy, and then this leads to Carter's opioid addiction. And David Krumholtz recently posted the little clip from ER because it's been like 26 years or something since, or I don't know, it's whatever anniversary of that episode airing. And I commented under it and I was like, someone should study the millennial trauma of Bernard the Elf then stabbing Carter and Lucy, because literally me as a youth was like, I can't comprehend that you're the same guy. And I mean, it just shows his versatility as an actor, but it was...
his range.
But I was having a hard time. And then when I went back and watched ER, because I'll be honest, I kind of fell off back in the day when it kept going. They actually have an episode a few years later where he comes back. Like, he's back in the ER with his wife who's pregnant. And Noah, Dr. Carter, whatever, he has like kind of PTSD seeing him or whatever.
As one would.
Yeah, because I think he ended up, obviously it went to court and stuff, but I think he ended up, because he was bipolar, kind of like getting off, or like not getting off, but like ending up in just shouldn't say just, like, anyway, he's out, he's doing better, he has a wife now, and so they have this kind of moment of where he's like, I am so sorry, I'm a different person now, I've been on my meds, I'm, you know, like all these things, but like it's still, such good television.
Yeah, I could not have that conversation with that person, I don't think. I'm not nice enough.
No, me either. It'd be hard. And then I just think there's so many touchstone moments in that show for like people our age where even, do you remember the episode where Dr. Green's in the elevator with a guy that's like a murderer or something, and he starts like coding and Dr. Green just hits the buttons here. He doesn't actually like do it. But it'll be on the record that he tried, but he and I was like, like, Dr. Green, it's against your oath, but at the same time, there's just,
you know,
so
what
many.
I think, like, history-wise, what I think about a lot is the Parkland Hospital in Texas, where JFK was taken after his assassination.
Right.
And so they try to save his life, obviously, but he was dead. But, you know, they do whatever they can, you know, and also when you're young, they will do really the craziest things because you can come back from a lot of stuff. Not from that, though.
Yeah.
But then they also had to treat Lee Harvey Oswald, which I think is interesting. And, their goal is to save human lives. Like that is all that they do at hospitals.
They're not supposed to.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I think
it would
just
be hard.
how difficult that must have been and how traumatic for like the nurses and the doctors to, first of all, just seeing your president like that would be awful. And then to be involved in trying to save the life of the person that did that. And it's just so complicated and awful. And yeah, so I think about that a lot.
Mm-hmm. I was going to say just about every medical show too, because they did it on Grey's Anatomy. With the black doctors, like if someone comes in with Nazi tattoos and they have to, there's a lot of like been like racist moments on the show or whatever where the black doctors have to still do it. Or if the person is like, no, I don't want you to be my doctor, they just have to kindly step away, even though, it's like, I just like those episodes always get to me too. And even The Pit, the end of last season, they deal with the mass shooter event. And again, the anxiety, even before the patients start coming in, there's a scene where Noah Wyle is prepping the whole ER. And he's like because when there's triage like that, they're like, these tags are for this. And he's just going through like the order of operations. And it's just, I don't know how many pages of dialogue it is, but it's just this whole spiel of like, here's how we're going to handle this. And my heart started going and I'm not even there. There hasn't even been one patient yet, but I was just like, I don't know how these people do it, but I'm glad someone's equipped to, because I don't know, man.
But in war, I'm trying to think of a non-TV show way to do it, but like, MASH is a good example. Like,
I relate almost everything to a movie or TV show. So
right. But it's just like, there's obviously, when people are injured and dying, like you try to save their lives, like it just shouldn't matter what side of the line they're fighting, But, I also, want us to just give peace a chance. So I don't know.
Right, exactly.
Probably
let's
like
not
the
have to make
audience.
that choice or something.
Yeah. Yeah. I would really like that for everybody.
Yeah.
But okay. So my pivot.
Okay. Yeah. Do it.
So if you were to like date somebody new, are you going to make them watch Heated Rivalry?
Funny you should say this, because since my obsession with literally since like Christmas, Heated Rivalry has taken over my life. I'm still seeing it's all my algorithm is.
Yeah.
Connor Story hosted SNL last night. And
how was it?
Okay. I literally got home at like midnight and then stayed up to watch it, because I usually watch it Sunday morning. Like I always record it and watch it. I don't know if I was just expecting too much, but I was kind of let down. I thought with all the accents he can do and with all the like lore around the show, I just thought there was more they could have done, But I did like the monologue with the female hockey players, so I enjoyed that. I don't know if you've seen any of it yet. And then, of course, the skit where Hudson Williams makes an appearance. Like, we knew he was going to pop up somewhere.
I wondered. Yeah.
That skit was actually funny. But for the most part, I was just kind of like, this is what you gave him? Like, I feel like he could have, I don't know. Again, I don't know what I was expecting, but I was expecting a little more. But back to the dating thing. Okay, so since this show
I'm interested. Yeah.
And since my obsession started, I am on the Bumble. And when you're on Bumble, once you match, it's up to me to say hey or whatever. Or you can put a automatic first move question for when you match. And my first move question before used to be, what's your go-to karaoke song? But it is now, have you watched Heated Rivalry? Because that's a good temperature gauge of if we're going to get along, I feel like. But I don't mind if you haven't watched it, but I've had a few guys answer that question and be like, what is it? And I'm like, you haven't even heard of it? Like, next.
Wow.
Because that also just means, to me, the fact that you've never even heard of it is like, do you even live in this world? Like, how have you not even heard of it? Like, I don't understand. But anyway, that's my temperature gauge now, is you need to at least know what it is or be open to it. A dude I matched with the other day, he hadn't seen it, but he goes, oh, is that hockey show on HBO? At least he knew what it was. So I was like, yes, it is. Or when guys go, what is it? And I'm like, it's 6 episodes. You should just watch it. It's not gonna, because again, there's so much in it about relationships that I think a dude just needs to know. And me being a pretty liberal, open-minded female with a lot of gay friends, like if you can't handle that kind of talk, I don't know how we're gonna be friends. It's just how it is.
That's true.
So part of me feels like it's at least a good temperature gauge, I would say.
It is a temperature gauge, I would say that. Yeah.
Yeah.
So tell me about the dark hole that is Bumble of Sioux Falls.
Well,
It
I
can't
gotta
be
say,
good.
I was formerly on Tinder,
Okay.
and then that movie came out, and I did not know the history of Tinder. Speaking of female empowerment and Women's History Month, this actually kind of ties in. And I'm not going to get any of their names right. But the co-founders of Tinder, there was actually a girl. There was like 3 of them, I think. And of course, in all the tech bro magazines, they would leave her out a lot, even though she was the brainchild behind let's start it on college campuses. Let's like hit the streets. Let's, like she was. And she was also like kind of techie. She knew code and some of that stuff that I don't know. But anyway, she was left out a lot. And then, of course, on Tinder, there was a lot of, they would get harassment complaints. Like, you're supposed to be able to report people and blah, blah, blah. And the bros there were like, they didn't care as much about it. And the women were like, no, we need to make it a safer space for women dating. Like, and then eventually the girl that had started Tinder with these other guys, she was dating one of them. And then when they broke up, and again, this is kind of allegedly her side of the story. You have to say allegedly, whatever. But I believe women, so I believe her. But he started kind of punishing her at work and like weirdly stalking her, just, being a dick, And so she leaves the company and tries to sue them for her rightful ownership of some of the money, and like it becomes messy and she basically gets left with like nothing. So then she starts Bumble, and that's why it's more women focused.
Really?
So yes. And so the minute I watched this movie, I was like, delete Tinder. I'm going to Bumble. And then I credit her for this. She had to have an investor, obviously, to start. And this investor ended up having like sexual harassment claims and stuff. And she cut ties with him like immediately, where some people would probably be like, oh, I'll try to, whatever. So, and it just goes, is there no good million? Like, just because you have money, do you have to be terrible? Can we have one example of a rich man not being terrible? Anyway, even Bill Gates, like, has come out with all these, I can't even. Okay, I'm getting
Well, and I mean, when Melinda left him, I knew it had to be bad because she was such a driving force for his philanthropy.
Yes. And that's why there's not as many women billionaires, because women are like, I'm going to share.
And
I don't need this much money. Like Dolly Parton could be a quadrillionaire, but she gives so much away, Anyway.
And even Dollywood is like preserving Appalachian culture. And there's just so many things that Dolly Parton has done in her life that I think they're going to go down in history as really important. And she does them in such a casual way, which I think is beautiful too. Just like, well, why wouldn't I do that? It's just like,
yeah. And she has so many good quotes. One of my favorite quotes I've read from her is like, someone asked her, like, do the dumb blonde jokes bother you, or like the bimbo, because the blonde hair and the big boobs and stuff. And she's like, no, because I know who I am. She goes, I know I'm not dumb, and I know I'm not a natural blonde, so dumb blonde jokes don't bother me.
Yeah. Fair.
And I just love that, But where was I going? Where were we talking about?
So before.
Oh, Bumble. Bumble.
Yeah, Bumble.
Okay, so I'm on the Bumble.
I'm scared.
And I gotta say, in general, I feel like the conversations do seem a little. They have more intent than a lot of them did on Tinder. I do think like. I don't know if it is just because the women have to talk first, so you're not getting just like a guy going like, hey, you're hot or whatever as a first line, or like, show me your boobs, or some of the dumb crap that you would get as a first whatever.
Yuck.
But I'm trying to think, since I've been, because this change to Bumble is, I don't think it's even been a full year yet. I'm trying to think if I've actually met someone in person off of it. I don't think I've actually gotten to that point with anybody yet where I was like, okay, yeah, we'll meet in person. But it's also just, I will say I haven't seen as many as the same people, because sometimes when I briefly tried Facebook dating, I felt like it was all the same people I saw on Tinder. Whereas like Bumble, I'm not seeing quite as many of the same people, if that makes sense. But I feel like the conversations in general, because it is kind of up to you to keep it going, is a little better quality, I would say. But still not, I mean, I'm still single, whatever. I mean, and I think there's part of me, like, when I travel, I feel like I get so many more matches and stuff because one, you're fresh meat. So like I think they just show like new profiles more when you're in a new place, 'cause when it's like location based. But I also kind of think for the area I'm in, the single men pool is only like this big here. And then the single men I'm actually willing to date is like here.
Right.
And doing a visual on a podcast doesn't totally make sense. But it shrinks a lot more when you live in a more conservative place, I guess. Because even some of the profiles, I'm immediately like, oh, I can't believe you put that in your profile next, you know. But I'm glad you did, because I know right away, you know. So
that's what I was going to say. Then I'm actually thankful.
Yeah. But
what are your are your 4 pictures on Bumble? Like, what are you sharing? What are you putting out there?
Well, I did go back and change a few, because I realized that a lot of them, and don't get me wrong, like when it's summer, I wear a lot more like skirts and dresses. But one time I looked back and I was like, I don't have one picture of me in like pants, and I live in a place where it's winter most of the time. Like I'm not, you know what I mean? Like that's probably not super. Let me see. I don't even remember. Oh, okay. I have the one picture of me at the Sphere for Backstreet Boys. So it's like full body.
Like, that's cute.
And then I have one of me from 4th of July with the shirt that says Stars, Stripes, and Reproductive Rights. So
my gosh, that's cute.
And then this one's kind of slutty, but it's from Halloween. I'm wearing kind of a see-through shirt. Oh, and then this one is from when I went to see Lady Gaga. So I don't know. There's some full body ones. But this is one of my newer headshots that I did.
That's really good. Yeah, I love that.
I feel like, and I try to use full body ones, because I want people to know I'm kind of short and chubby. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I don't want to show up and you're like, ugh. Like, I don't know. But again, they are pictures that I all look pretty good in. I mean,
they look like you, though.
Yeah. And then, but that's the thing too. Okay, as someone that just turned 40, and we're the same age-ish, I feel like we don't necessarily look our age. We look pretty good for our age. A lot of men on there, when it says they're 40, I'm like, you look 58. Like, I don't know how we're the same age. Like, what happened in your life? Which, again, I'm trying not to judge, but I'm like, I don't want to date someone that looks so old, because I don't think I look that old, you know? And like, and I don't mean that to sound super conceited, but I'm, what the hell, you know? And a lot of guys just don't know how to like take a good picture, or the pictures they choose, I'm like, these are really the best ones you got. Like, I don't understand. You look like a serial killer in this, with like your angle and like the darkness, and like, what are you doing? I don't know. Men just need help with these profiles, I think. But
yeah, so once they watch Heated Rivalry, they'll be good.
Yeah, then they should know better what to do.
Yeah, I liked all the stuff after the Super Bowl halftime about Ricky Martin and how amazing he looks. And it's like, finally men are going to start getting a skincare routine because of Ricky Martin.
But he also has money. I mean, money does help. Although some people with money go too far and then they look crazy.
Yeah. Honestly, he just looks, I think he would look the same if he didn't have money. I feel like if he was a waiter, he would have spent
genes for sure.
Yeah. And like, I think he would have spent like all of his extra money to look good, because it's an important part of like, him.
Some of my favorite memes regarding to Ricky Martin after this was, because, you know, our generation, he like came out, right?
He did. Yeah. It was a big deal.
A few memes I saw were like, was the closet like glass for you guys? I don't know, because it's like clips of Ricky Martin performing. It's like, how did you not know?
I know. But
I think for a lot of us, it was like, oh, but he's like, well, not European, but he's just a different culture. It's a different vibe, you know? Like that song from Legally Blonde, like, is he gay or European? Here in America, do you remember even when we would say people were, what was the word for straight guys?
Metrosexual?
Metrosexual. It's like, if you were a guy that just like bathed, it was like, oh, you're a metrosexual. Just take care of yourself. And, you know, I don't know, straight guys. Yeah. Just
I actually just heard I just heard the metrosexual thing recently. I was just like, it was just, my mind was boggled because they're just like, I don't know if they're gay or metrosexual. And I'm just like, are you going to date them? Does it matter? Like, I'm so confused why you care. We hit all the marks. I feel good about it. And I'm glad that we're able to make this work today.
Thank you. Have a great day.
Bye. You too. Bye.
Thank you so much for listening to this episode of Talking with Tasha. If you like what you heard there, make sure you rate, review, subscribe, comment, share, like, do all the things. You can listen to Talking with Tasha at talkingwithtasha.com. It's also on Apple, Spotify, Amazon, Pandora, and now on YouTube. Check it out. Also, at talkingwithtasha.com. You can find all my social media links. You can find my Fiverr and Cameo link there. If you'd like to send me an email, it's talkingwithtashapod@gmail.com. And, while you're at it, maybe go over to local Lou's page and give her some love too. Because, it's Women's History Month. You just should. Okay? And anyway, I think there's only one thing left to do. Be safe, make good choices, wash your hands, just try to be a good person, stay hydrated, and peace out, Brussels sprout. Bye.